everyone, welcome back. My name's Taylin Lanier Flores, and this is Dietitian with a Mission. Today we are making a leek and butternut squash risotto, and that is because our featured ingredients for the month of December are alliums. One less popular allium is the leek. For those of you who don't know what an allium is a species of plants from the lily family, and they're characterized by several features. One is their sheathing, so alliums have layers. Garlic has several layers of skin, or leeks have several layers, green onions have several layers, onions have several layers, so they have that sheath effect. Another feature of our alliums is the flower. So when these plants flower, they have these beautiful blossoms that are pink or purple or blue. That's another distinctive feature. And one of the most popular features of alliums is their odor or aroma. That is from the complex sulfurous compounds that are found in the plant that gives it its fragrance. And that's why adding alliums to dishes is so essential. It really enhances our meals. It turns them from flat and dull to robust and gives it a lot of depth. So if you aren't already familiar with using alliums in recipes, now is a good time to start. Risotto is a rice-based dish, so this recipe is gluten-free. We will be using cheese, so this recipe is not vegan, but it is vegetarian. We've got a throwback to our squash, and we'll be using butternut squash, along with arborio rice, some fresh basil, fresh thyme, garlic, and Parmesan cheese. We'll also be seasoning this dish with vegetable broth, salt, and pepper. So let's get to it. So leeks look like giant long green onions. They've got a white part and they've got a green part. And if you keep your leeks too long in your fridge, or if they sit too long in the grocery store, the green leaves will start to turn yellow, a little brownish. They'll get fibrous and dry, and so you can just peel back the layers. And peeling back the layers in general are good because a lot of dirt can get stuck in between the layers. So I've already rinsed off my leeks, and I'm just gonna kind of take a peek in the leek to see if there's any large clumps of dirt. A little bit of some grass here, a little mud. Okay. Yeah, you see that? A little bit of dirt. We don't want dirty risotto. Okay, so when you buy leeks, they usually come in a bunch of 3 to 4. Gives you a lot to work with. This recipe, we just need 3 cups. So I'm just gonna start by chopping one of my large leeks to see how much that provides for me. I'll cut off the end where the roots are, discard of that in my compost, and then just into rounds. So far, my leeks are giving me, what is this? 2 cups, and that was my largest one. So I'm gonna go ahead and chop up one more small leek, and I'll have about 3 cups. Okay, if you are sensitive to the sulfurous gas in leeks, feel free to wear some goggles, or you can store your leeks in the refrigerator beforehand or the freezer beforehand. That makes the sulfurous gases less volatile, and it will create a lower or lighter burning sensation. Or if you wear contacts, putting in your contacts will help prevent those sulfurous gases from impacting your eyes, and you will be tear free. Okay, so we've got about 3 cups of our leeks here. Now we're gonna move on to peeling our butternut squash. To peel your butternut squash, one tip is to take a fork, poke it several times, and then pop it in the microwave for a few minutes. It will be hot when you take it out, so be careful. and that will make the skin easier to peel. So I'm gonna put this in for 2 minutes and see how that works out. I also have a pot that can hold 2 quarts of liquid, and in it, I'm warming up 7 cups of low sodium vegetable broth. While my broth is heating up, and while my butternut squash is getting softened, I'm gonna go ahead and take my cheese. I'm just using a lightly aged Parmesan. You could use a much older aged Parmesan, will give it a more robust flavor. We're gonna shred this to give us about 3/4 cup Parmesan cheese. I've got my 3/4 cup grated Parmesan cheese. This ended up being about 3 ounces of cheese. Setting that aside now, my butternut squash is out of the microwave. It's a little cool, but the skin peels off so easily now. I don't have to fight with it. Okay, it's nice and peeled. So to cut a squash, you want a flat surface. So I like to cut off the bottom portion and the top portion. And that way I got a flat surface to work with. It's much more safe. Or you can kind of like cut off a side piece and it will allow it to stay flat and not roll around if you want to cut it that way. Either way, it doesn't matter. So you can take your knife. You do want a sharp knife. That will allow you to cut through the squash more easily. And again, microwaving helps as well. So here's the inner part of our butternut squash. You can get a tablespoon or a regular spoon or measuring cup or an ice cream scoop. Scoop out the seeds. If you want to toast the seeds like you would pumpkin seeds, that's totally doable. Or you can toss it in your recycle, or you can save it to plant for another season. To cut our squash into cubes, I'm just gonna cut them into rings. They're about a finger and some change wide. And then we can take those rounds and cut them into strips and then into cubes. And to save a lot of time, you can head over to Trader Joe's or Costco and buy 2 pounds of pre-cut butternut squash, and that will save you this whole entire step. But we're gonna finish chopping up the squash, and then I will see you back for the rest of the ingredients. My squash is all chopped up, and that squash was about 3 pounds. So I only need 4 cups, which to me is looking like about 2 of the 3 pounds. Now that that's done, we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of olive oil to our pot. 1, 2, 3. Turn that on medium. My broken knob. And then once that comes up to temperature, we'll add our squash. I'm gonna save the rest of this squash and roast it for a dinner another night. I've got 4 cloves of garlic, and I'm adding this to a risotto because garlic is fantastic and it adds so much flavor, and it is part of our allium family. So it fits right in with the leeks. We're gonna smash it and let it saute in the pan with our olive oil and our butternut squash. I'm just cutting off the ends here where there's the fibrous base of the garlic. Okay, so to tell if our oil is ready, I can just take a piece of garlic, put it in the pan, and I hear a sizzle, so that means it's ready. So we're gonna cook that until the butternut squash becomes soft. It's already fragrant. You can put the lid on it to speed up the time, and then we'll go on to our next step. Let's prep our herbs. I've got fresh thyme here. Smells fantastic. I suppose if you have dried thyme, you could use it, but fresh thyme is really going to give this recipe flavor and depth, and also lots of antioxidants. So the leaves fall off pretty easily. I'm just kind of running my fingers across the woody stem and the leaves fall off. Now, you don't want to get a lot of these second layer woody stems, right? We've got like our primary, and then we've got the ones that kind of spider off. We don't want a lot of those because they're pretty fibrous in our risotto. But if you get small bits of it, that's not going to be a problem. So you can kind of sift through. Now I would say minimum you need a tablespoon. I like a lot of flavor, I like a lot of herbs. I'm going to kind of eyeball it, and I'm going to chop up some fresh basil. I've got maybe about a cup or so. It's been about 10-12 minutes and our squash is soft. It's starting to brown at the bottom, so I'm going to transfer it into a separate bowl. And you should still have some oil in your pan. If you don't, you can add, another tablespoon or so, just enough to allow the leeks to cook. There we go. We're gonna add our leeks and our thyme. I've got 1 heaping tablespoon to our pot, and that's gonna cook down nicely. It's gonna break apart in about 5 minutes or so. It's gonna wilt down. It smells fabulous. Once that happens, we're gonna measure out about 2 cups of arborio rice and add about 2 cups of our broth. And over time, that rice is going to soak up more and more of the broth. We're gonna give it a stir. It's gonna continuously soak up the broth. So what we'll be doing is just taking our 1 cup measuring cup and adding more broth, allowing time for the rice to absorb the flavor, and then going back until all of our broth is done. In the last half of the recipe, we'll add the butternut squash back into the dish and let all of the flavors marinate, let the squash break down a bit, then we'll stir in the cheese and top with our basil. Okay, and we're gonna give that a nice mix. Turn down the heat so the rice doesn't burn on the bottom. Oh, this looks good. And you can cool off a tablespoon to taste test and adjust the salt as needed, and top with some pepper. Let me give you a look at our beautiful, creamy butternut squash and leek risotto. Here is our butternut squash and leek risotto. This is a vegetarian dinner. It's ready to go. You can eat it as is. I would serve this hot. If you feel like you want a protein to go with it, I think this would work really well with grilled shrimp, salmon, or chicken. Let's give it a taste. Get a little bit of everything in the bite. The basil at the end is a really great touch. That's it. I hope you enjoy.